So a very, very warm welcome. Good evening, everyone, to the first live podcast on my channel. Welcome to Boonatix, the community for sim racing beginners and enthusiasts alike. And I'm very excited. I'm also a bit nervous because we have an amazing, very special and pretty famous guest on this premiere show. So I hope everyone is ready. I hope you have something to drink. I hope you have something to snack. And you already have some questions on your mind because let's just switch over to the other studio and see what's going on. And hello, Chris. Everyone welcome. Chris Haye, how are you doing, mate?
Hey man, it's yeah, thank you. I'm good. You flatter me with the kind words. I think gambling the future reputation of this show on my star power is a brave move, and I applaud you for taking such courageous action right at the beginning. It's heroic, really. This is these are things like this live or die on. So it's very nice to have all of your future success in my hands right now.
Oh, that's really nice. I feel absolutely no pressure right now. So yes, everyone in chat, if since this is my very first podcast right now, I'm still figuring things out as I go. If you feel like the sound is like totally off or you can't hear Chris or I'm too loud or whatever, just feel free to let me know in chat. And yes, you're also welcome to participate, ask your questions, throw around your input and comments in the chat. We will try our best to answer some of these. I cannot promise you, unfortunately, that we will be able to answer everything that's going on in chat because then we would be sitting here probably until next week. So we will just go from there. So thank you again, Chris, actually for giving me this opportunity. And it was actually just because of your video that you did during the Christmas break, which was actually, I think, one of the most amazing gifts I received in the last year, being mentioned in your video and on your channel. And it brought so many of your people to my channel who were so nice and warm and actually gave me so much positive feedback and positive energy that I just thought like, okay, I need to actually reach out to you and annoy you a little bit more and do something together. And then you actually posted your video for the new year with the collaborations. So that's like how we ended up here.
Wow, yeah, this is all very wholesome so far, isn't it? I was planning on, I'm sitting having a sip from my suspicious bottle, and I thought this was going to be a very different kind of podcast. But it was a pleasure to feature your channel. I like creators who are doing things a little bit differently, and people that are giving and trying to help the community as well as just necessarily maybe race or promote their own style of things. So it's always nice to be able to just sort of give a bit of a shout out. It's one of the great gifts of having a small audience is being able to recommend things. Sometimes they're going to like it, sometimes they're not. But it's always nice to be able to say, hey, go and check this out.
Yeah, that was really cool. And as you said, that's really a benefit of a small audience. And as I've been basically starting from zero, I have been actually building up this community at a really decent pace, and that just enabled me to just kind of build up connections with viewers, remembering names, remembering when they are coming back, and that feels so cool. I'm so thankful for that. And especially in these times, it's so nice to meet new people in a completely new environment.
You asked me not to mention that.
yeah, exactly. Which brings us actually to the first rule. There's only one rule in fight on my podcast. Sorry, I'm just that was the wrong one. Tonight we won't be talking about politics or COVID or any of that stuff. So tonight my podcast is all about getting your minds off anything which might be going wrong outside and just have a good time and enjoy each other's company and talk about anything related to like sim racing, Chris, me, motorsports, whatever. So without further ado, is there anything on your mind, Chris?
There is on my mind. Well, I was just thinking, you never mentioned politics before. And I would say about 50% of my material, such that it is based around comparing sim racing to Brexit. So that's half of my act completely gone. So, we're doing improv now. We're definitely live, aren't we? Right. Okay. Let's get a question. Come on.
So fortunately enough, I just
questions, man. Let's wrap through them.
I just basically prepared a full A4 page, so we're good, Chris. We're good. No need to panic. We got a bunch of people already in the chat, which is awesome. Looking forward to this all day. John McDonald is actually saying that Chris, it was you who got him into Assetto Corsa from the amazing videos. So that's nice.
Sorry, I'm so deeply sorry about that.
So, I mean, I have to honestly say that I remember watching your videos like over a year back, and I was just amazed by how beautiful the games were looking. And it was actually one of the things that got me to look up Assetto Corsa Competizione. And I was just baffled. I've never been playing sim racing games before, actually. I mean, if you can call like the old Grand Prix games simulations, I'm not sure. And it was actually the reason why I got ACC was just because it looked great. And I was like, I don't know, I kind of want to give racing games another try. And it looked good. And yeah, that's how it all went sideways actually from there.
No, the old Grand Prix games are definitely simulations. I have a statue of Jeff Crammond in my garden. I think they are the reason I am involved in sim racing in any way, shape, or form is because of the old Microprose Grand Prix games. So yeah, not only are they simulations, they're seminal. They're the reason why all of this has happened to me.
Yeah, that's amazing. I just remember, I think Grand Prix 2 was the first one that I played, and I just played it on a keyboard. I mean, can you imagine playing a simulation today on a keyboard?
I don't have to imagine it. I did it recently with R Factor, and
okay.
I won't be doing it again.
I can only imagine how that went.
It wasn't interesting enough to put out as a video. I thought, this might be a bit of fun. The wheel wasn't hooked up. I thought, well, it's just maybe if this is interesting, I could put up a video about it. And what it was just me being really frustrated at my inability to make a car go even remotely in a straight line with a keyboard. Nobody needs to see that.
Yeah. So while we are talking about that, what would you say was your first? Well, let's expand. What was like your first racing / simulation game that you can remember playing?
Well, the beautiful thing about that question is that it's actually in the form of a disjointed long segue, because it was the first Microprose Grand Prix game, the 1991 season. So it came out in 92, I think, because games had a long lead time then, and well, they still do, but things came out after the fact, and it didn't have an official license. You had all sorts of weird names, but they were smart enough, and I wish more games did this, that you could just go in and type in with your keyboard the real names and then just save them. It's beautiful. You didn't have to deal with the knockoff names for more than about 10 minutes. And you could put your mates in some of the other cars. If there was a driver you didn't like, you could put Dave the plumber in instead of him. And, I miss that in sim racing. It's like editable names for the AI would make my experience far better. I wouldn't even bother going online anymore. I could just get you guys from chat. I could get your names, put them in the cars, and I don't even have to worry about getting into trouble or saying something stupid or crashing into people and getting annoyed at me because they know who I am and they know where to find me and yell at me. I can just crash into them from the privacy of my own studio without anyone ever finding out. Sorry, what was the question?
I don't know. Let me just rewind the stream. Let's just take the opportunity.
It was the Grand Prix games. For a long time, pretty exclusively. I played some of the Papyrus stuff that was around in the mid-90s, the IndyCar and NASCAR games that sort of the lineage all goes through to what iRacing is now, which I think is still rotating around on the screen in the background because I forgot to shut it down earlier. And I've played everything since. There was a big period in the middle where I didn't play anything that you would consider all that serious a sim. I did a lot of Project Gotham. It's got a project in it. It's basically the same thing. And Forza on the Xbox and the Gran Turismo games. And I never considered myself a sim racer until I sort of got back into it sort of seriously on the PC 4 or 5 years ago with Assetto Corsa.
Yeah.
I'd played, I had R Factor before that, and Automobilista, and a few other little bits. Although Automobilista was about the same time now I think about it. So, but yeah, I played some serious stuff. Race 07 and 08 I played, but I never really got involved in online communities or even really knew the term sim racer until Assetto Corsa came out. I picked up a copy and was just like, wow, this is great. Let's have some more of this.
Awesome. That's like you took quite a journey. For me it was actually the first touch was the Grand Prix 2 and Grand Prix 3 games, and I just remember like back in the days, unfortunately for Grand Prix 3 they just upped the graphics at that point, and my computer back then just couldn't handle it. So I always went to my neighbor who was having a better computer, and we were sitting there playing Grand Prix 3, and it was just amazing. And then actually the next touch point was well, it's not a simulation, but it was actually Need for Speed Underground. After a really long time of not doing any racing games, Need for Speed Underground kind of was the incentive that made racing a car, even though it was not very realistic, but it made the whole journey so enjoyable. And I think the only thing that I played before Assetto Corsa was actually was it on the PlayStation 3, Need for Speed Shift Part 2 or something? So I was never getting into the other bigger names like Gran Turismo or Forza or something, because they were kind of, I don't want to say intimidating, but they were looking way too serious for me. And yeah, so my last touch point really was actually NFS Shift, which is like, I think 10 years ago or something.
You've actually reminded me. It was, I bought F1 2014, because I played all the F1 games because I'm a huge motorsport fan.
Yeah.
I bought F1 2014 and thought, well, this would be better with a wheel. So I bought a Thrustmaster wheel. And then, of course, you've invested some money in a wheel. You think, well, I should get some other games that work with this. And I looked it up, and Assetto Corsa had just come out. So slightly topical link with Codemasters. Yeah, Codemasters probably are the thing that sort of meandered me to where I am now. And obviously they're in the news fairly prominently today.
So GP Labs is asking an interesting question in the chat. Is actually, where can one obtain a Geoff Crammond statue, please?
You have to go to I can't remember where he lives. It's probably in Ipswich. There's a shrine you have to pray at and leave a coin. Someone contacts you in the middle of the night, and it's a bit of a process, but the man comes and hand delivers a statue of himself. You'd think, if you've listened to interviews with him, you'd think he's a shy and retiring man, but actually he makes all of his money just with statues of himself now. It's a strange way to make a living, but that's ultimately where I hope to go with this.
Oh my god, okay, now you got me hooked. I need to get a statue like that. Probably put it up in my living room right next to the sim rig.
Well, if nothing else, it'll help with any sort of subsidence issues. Finding subsidence issues, that is.
Oh, that's just awesome. So another question in the chat is actually, when are you going to release your racetrack? Because I remember seeing your last video, which was about designing your childhood dream racetrack, which looked awesome.
The short answer, which was the short answer at the time, is maybe. There's a point that maybe I'll get it to a point where I'm happy to put it out there. But this was sort of really meant as a project for me. I don't want to become beholden to having to polish this to a level that I'd be happy to have it out in the community. At the moment, it's pretty rough. I got it to a stage where I could film the rest of the video, because I'm sure you can appreciate these things take quite a bit of time. And actually creating the video took longer than creating the track, because all the planning and everything that went into that was quite a big project. So honestly, I was quite happy to sort of see the back of it, get it out into the world. And it's a thing I'd been working on for pretty much since Christmas, that video. So it'd been nice to just sort of have a bit of a mental break from it. And it's been 6 days now, and you found me in the chat, you people. Release this thing. No, I might, a little bit down the line, once I've had a chance to polish it, I will. And by polish it, I mean like remove the mountainous lumps, and make sure the curbs are all in the right places, and make it even remotely drivable.
Okay, so it sounds like we need to come up with a new hashtag. Like, I don't know if you've been following up, like, release the Snyder cut of the Justice League
Oh,
movie. We're just gonna come up with a hashtag, release the Chris Haye track.
God.
We're just gonna make that trending on Twitter right now, guys. Everyone in chat, come on.
Yeah, see, I've got some ideas for what that should be, but I'm going to keep them to myself because they'll all come out as quite rude. So anyway, yeah, how are you? We've been talking about me. How are you, dude?
It's amazing, and I mean, if we want to talk about me, the next question in chat, unfortunately, is also for you, Chris. It's from Ninero, and he has a pretty cool question. He does. How does it feel to collaborate with one of the biggest content creators in sim racing, Chris?
Honestly, I'm a bit starstruck. Unfortunately, I don't have a screen share, so I'm talking into a blank camera. So I'm having to imagine what you look like, much like I have to imagine what the viewers look like. And thankfully, I imagine the viewers look all exactly like you. So this is much easier than I thought it would be.
Awesome, amazing. So I know that was like the question actually is meant for me actually, but I have to say it feels amazing. I am enjoying this a lot.
Everyone's saying very nice, flattering things. I was expecting the chat to be flooded with all sorts of difficult questions and the perennial when is Nordschleifer being released for ACC.
We are just 15 minutes in, you know, the chat is just warming up right now. Yeah, there's still
time.
time.
I'm going to tease that piece of information right for when you sign off. I know the answer to that.
Awesome. I'm just getting my shots ready for, you know, the Nordschleife question. Like Aris, like you have to take a shot every time someone mentions it in chat.
I have to drive home from here, unfortunately. So the studio is a sober place and kind of weird. There's a lot of people about actually next door. I can hear people working next door. Apparently they work at night.
But it's heated,
I don't know
right?
why I'm sharing that with you. But now, you know, whoever's watching this knows that my neighbors are in. So
we're going all in tonight. There is no boundaries tonight. So since we were talking about like the old sim racing games, it's like is there a distinct memory that just springs to your mind, something nostalgic that you're like, this is the moment that I remember the most out of like all the games you have been playing, everything you have experienced? Is there like really something that stands out?
I mean, there are a few moments that have sort of grabbed me. I think driving without making things a little bit morbid, but when Grand Prix 2 came out, driving Imola in the Williams at the time felt quite poignant. I was 10 when Senna died, and he was a hero of mine. So sort of that was a sort of hairs on the back of your arm kind of moving experience. And there have been a few things where sim racing sort of put me in a place to really think about things like that. I drove an Aston Martin DBR1 shortly after Sterling Moss died, and that was quite profound is probably the wrong word, but it was an emotionally weighty experience. But yeah, I think the thing that jumps out was the first time I drove a Group C car in Assetto Corsa. That definitely made me think whether this whole sim racing business has got the ability to move you, to give you a sense of connection with motorsport that I would never have. No one in their right mind is ever going to let me anywhere near a Group C car, but I can at least get close.
Yeah, that's. I think what you just said is like the immersion, the connection. It's somehow emotional, and I never actually. I mean, I've been playing on my own a lot of different games. I actually come more from the type of the like role playing games and World of Warcraft and whatever the hell. I've been playing that for ages, and usually the problem there was kind of always the sort of everyone's anonymous, nobody knows anyone, and things have been getting more toxic all the way. And when I actually jumped into sim racing and got into this community, the motorsports community in general, and the people, and I was just, my mind was blown by how helpful, most of the time friendly and welcoming everyone was. And I was just like, I wasn't used to that. And that actually made me feel it actually made the whole thing much more fun because you were racing against other people and something went wrong and immediately somebody was apologizing, and I wasn't used to that. I was like, what the hell? It's just a game. But it's actually, I understand now when like drivers like David Perel or other sim racers and live streamers say, no, it's actually just more than a game, because you have so many different experiences with other players around the world, and that actually what makes this so much more an incredible experience. Every time I sit in this rig and participate in a race against other people and have my stream on and the people there, it's just an incredible experience that I will never want to miss again, actually.
The sim racing community is, and I'm always consistently surprised by how giving and friendly it is most of the time. You get negative people in every community in all walks
of
of life,
course.
but I don't know. I've been involved in a lot of online communities for various sort of pastimes over the years, and sim racing feels a lot like one of those things where it's still growing and there's a sort of shared collective experience of everyone wants to push it in the same direction, with notable exceptions. But there is this sort of community all rowing in the same direction mostly feel. Now the question is, does that remain if sim racing became more mainstream? Obviously, you used WoW as an example, and that's a great one, but something like Call of Duty may even be better, where the volume or the widespread nature of it means that the volume of the more toxic people within that community is louder and it's amplified further. So maybe sim racers are inherently nice people, or maybe it's just a consequence of the fact that we are a smaller community, but we're growing and we all desperately want this thing to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Hold on to the thought of becoming more popular and growing. I just want to bring in some other questions. Peter is asking if your studio is separate from your home, right?
It is, yeah. I moved in here back in October because I have a 1-year-old son. Well, he's one on Tuesday. Wait, what day of the week is it? No, it's Thursday, isn't it? I definitely know what day of the week it is. Fine. On Tuesday he's 1 year old. So
awesome!
It's
Congratulations, mate.
increasingly difficult to produce content at home, especially sharing a wall with a baby. He was either asleep and I couldn't disturb, or he was awake and therefore there was no chance of being able to get anything done. So I needed to move my workspace to somewhere outside of the house.
So the obvious answer to the next question is, you are doing this for a living. This is your job.
Yeah, it's sort of 70. I don't know. It's difficult to give a complete split. I am doing this. I'm making videos in this place full time. A big portion of my income comes from commercial work rather than necessarily through making money on YouTube ads or affiliate programs or selling T-shirts or whatever, all the other things that content creators normally do. So I've taken a slightly different approach to things, which I hope gives me a little bit more freedom to create the kind of content I want to make, rather than necessarily having to chase video ideas that go for more views. I mean, the reality is I couldn't make a video like, about the Porsche 908 that I made a few weeks ago if I was chasing views, because I know it's got a limited audience, but I want to make small documentaries about fun cars and experiences within sim racing, because I'm doing this because I like making videos, not because I'm a sim racer who sort of thinks that making videos will help any other aspect of it. There are lots of different reasons people get into this, but I went to art school. I tried to be a commercial photographer and got bored of that. But so yeah, I'm coming at it because I want to make films. Just so happens those films are about sim racing, and that sounds really pretentious when I use the word films. So we're going to go back to calling them videos. And if anyone says the word cinematography, then I'm turning the camera off.
No, I think you spoke about a very important aspect, which I think is why a lot of content creators are maybe failing is you don't do this for views. You also don't get into the stock market with the catalog of Lamborghini next to you. You do this because you have a passion for it, or you want to gamble, or it gives you like an adrenaline kick, or because it's your passion. And I think that's because I think that's one of the reasons why your content and your community and your channel is so big and has such a great audience as well, because it's your passion. You put your heart into it, you do what you enjoy, and that was actually for me the approach as well. And interestingly enough, there is a question from Andy saying that we both do beginners content. Obviously, you go more into the artistic side of things. And what's the reasoning for catering more towards beginners in sim racing, or the artistic side of things? And I can just say that when I got into sim racing, I was really struggling to get to grips with everything. It's an overwhelming hobby, actually, because there is so much more behind it. It's not a Need for Speed Underground where you put on a spoiler and lower your car and, oh my god, yeah, I'm gonna rock everyone. It's just like
he's lying to you. That is absolutely how you do it.
It's all about you. And of course there are actually to be honest, a lot of videos already out there for beginners, with tips and tricks, but they all just made it sound so easy, like, you just need to trail brake, that's it, you just need to turn in there, that's it. And I'm like, yay, I'm 10 seconds off the pace, awesome. And I always wanted to try out streaming and gaming and create something and entertain people and grow a community. And I tried it 4 years ago in another niche game, which is called Terraria on Twitch, which is like a similar.
Wow. Yeah, that's a game that I always look at and think, wow, that would consume my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've never been brave enough to click the download button on Steam because I know I won't leave the house and my beard will be down to my knees.
Don't do it, mate. I'm over it now. But yeah, I tried it like 3-4 years ago, and it just didn't work because it was not the right thing for me. It didn't click. And then I just took a break, and then I don't know why, but everything just came together with the thing that happened that we don't want to talk about last year, and it which shall not be named, if we want to give it some Harry Potter style there. And I thought to myself, well, no one is really documenting it. I've been, I discovered guys like Jimmy Broadband, like Chadier, like Niels, like all the fast people with their huge audiences and what they were doing. And I was sitting there like, oh my god, I don't even know how to survive a lap on that track. And that's where actually the idea for my community came about, that I wanted to document what I am learning while I am learning it, and what I learned, to document and put that in videos to help other people. And that's actually the distinct memory then that came to my mind, that actually kickstarted the channel, was just a stupid coincidence with Assetto Corsa, I think, being out for Competizione being out for like a year or so, and the SRO was starting up the esports races because of the races were shut down. And I went on race department, and I don't know why, I can't remember why, but I discovered a topic about custom liveries. And there was a guy sharing all the info with all the templates, and I was like, wow, that's cool. I love that, customizing your own car, Need for Speed Underground, all that memories springing up again. And I started experimenting, and I was looking for tutorials, and there was none. And then like my marketing brain sprung in and said, like, you're trying to do a channel, you're trying to grow a community, this is your chance. It was like this little guy in the back of my head. And then I did my first ever video, which is like, if I look at it now, it's awful. I don't know if you have the same feeling with your first videos, but it's like awful.
Sure.
And that it just took off. And that was just one of these things, like being in the right place at the right time. And that was then, I think, actually also the trigger that kept me going and kept me motivated. And now I have been talking for a lot, so like back to you. How was it for you? What was for you the trigger that made you create artistic sim racing videos?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a journey there between the trigger that made me sort of start a YouTube channel, and then getting to thinking too highly of myself and spending far too long capturing things in slow motion. But the reason I started the channel was because I was getting really deeply interested in the modding side of Assetto Corsa and seeing all this amazing stuff. And at the time, the content creators on YouTube that were sort of covering that kind of stuff, the coverage of it was pretty sparse. Jimmy would do the occasional thing on mods, and maybe someone like Empty Box and people like that. And there was a lot of good stuff that wasn't necessarily being talked about. And again, as I said, I come from a sort of marketing background as well, so I had a similar thing. So I should probably maybe I could make some videos about these things. I have the skills, as I said, I was a studio photographer for a long time, so I've got the sort of technical know-how to do it. I'd never cut any video, but I watched Godfather 900 times, so maybe I could put those two things together.
That's actually a terrific idea.
Sounds awfully grandiose, but it was nothing like that, really. The idea of making content more cinematic was just that I get bored quite easily. So I like making videos for me. I once I've done the same type of video a few times, I get reticent to do it again. I've got a review I need to do for Simucube for their direct drive wheelbase that I've made twice now. I've got 2 complete videos that I could put up on the internet. One taking a conventional route, one taking a more interesting route, and I'm still just like, no, this isn't interesting enough. I want to create something that I'm proud of, and that's such a stupid position to take, but that's what I like doing. As I said, I'm here to make videos. So I can't remember what the question. Oh, it's how I got into all of this. But yeah, how it got to all of the sort of overtly ridiculous production side of things is just a case of trying to satisfy my own urge to make something that looks different to the thing I made last week.
Amazing. So, if when you're finished with your Simucube review and you don't need the Simucube anymore, I'll just give you my address and maybe I can help you.
Well, I mean, with the thing I can't name that happened where the country that I'm from did the thing that was bad.
Oh, yeah.
Depending on which side of the thing you're on. I might have tipped my hat a little bit there by accident. Never mentioned that before. Won't be mentioning it again. I'm sure sending you a giant heavy box worth of stuff won't be an issue at all.
Absolutely not. It's really time that the scientists step up the game in terms of teleporting stuff, or I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I've got some room up on the mezzanine. I'd get that installed.
Just strap it onto a huge drone and just send it over, mate.
Yeah, nothing really came of that whole Amazon drone delivery thing, did it? And
yeah, it's just such a shame.
I'm pretty thankful about that.
All right. Let's just take another look at the chat. There's just so much going on. I'm barely able to keep up, guys. Everyone in chat is doing amazing. 369 Dark Knight is actually asking, which is also something that I have on my mind, is Chris, do you race regularly with your busy schedule? And knowing the things about sim racing, do you still enjoy it as much as when you started, or do you enjoy it more or less?
Great question, and something that I like to try and address as often as possible. Right up until the point where my son was born, I was racing really, really regularly. And I'm sure lots of people in chat with kids will know that as soon as you have a baby, your free time evaporates. So I come here to work. I get to treat this as a 9 to 5 job, although it's more like from sort of 5 in the morning until sort of 1 in the afternoon. Again, we have to share childcare, and the Voldemort situation, as you so eloquently put it earlier, means the childcare has to come from my wife and myself. So scheduled organized racing is a bloody nightmare at the moment, and I've not done anything like as much as I'd like to. So I'm trying to set myself challenges to do interesting stuff for myself. So I mentioned in the last video that I'm doing a thing where I'm trying to do 1,000 laps of a circuit to see what I learned during that time, what the progression is, and I think there's an interesting video concept in there, and it's starting to come together. And I think if you take some sort of hints about what's been going on, that you might get an idea of what's happening with that, or at least a little bit of a hint. So yeah, my racing side of things is about trying to find interesting ways of engaging with sim racing while doing sort of league racing and competitive stuff is more difficult. I did the Ferrari eSport series stuff last year, which just after I'd moved into here, actually, which was awful timing. So that was four races for Ferrari, and it's one of those things when Ferrari say, "Do you want to come and do a thing for us?" You sort of say, "Yes, please, thank you." Yeah,
absolutely.
but that was it's kind of a nightmare situation for a content creator, because you have to put a load of work in to be even remotely close to the pace. And I'm not an esports guy. And you look at all the other people in the lobby, and they're all esport people. There are people that have won in every game that you can name, and I'm just some YouTube pleb, to use Jimmy's term. And on a good day, I can stay in touch with those guys for a dozen laps, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's just it's a difficult situation, because you get lots of offers in this kind of position to take on races like that, and you never really know what you're going to meet on the other side. They always say it's going to be, it's influencers, and it's going to be community personalities, and then what they mean by that is it's the 2019 F1 esports champion and the SRO esports champion, and okay. Well, I'm none of those things. I'm a guy with a bigger shed than other sheds, perhaps, but still not. I do see myself as a content creator more than a sim racer. That's a kind of weird realization that I'm coming to on the stream. This is great therapy. Do you have a background in professional psychiatric care?
No. But if you need someone to talk to,
but if the channel doesn't work out, then
I'm just gonna I don't know. I'm not the guy who ever thought about studying something. Going to university. I was just so baffled when I was in school. Everybody was complaining about homework and learning, and then when you finish school, you want to get a job, and everyone was like, "Oh, I'm going to university." I'm like, "Are you crazy? You complained your whole life about learning and homeworks, and now you want to make it even worse." And
that's why you go to art school.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is spend your day painting. At least that's how I imagine it.
Not that dissimilar. I did spend one day using a photocopier to make a book. That was pretty much the best thing I ever did. So yeah, wow, it's getting deep. We need one of those couches where you can sort of lie down, and I can tell you about Assetto Corsa.
So Pete's just saying I can call myself Dr. Boonatix.
I used to buy pills from a guy with a... Well, no, I didn't. Anyway, moving on. Anything you want to chat?
Okay, let's just, change the topic. It's have you been ever attending real racetrack events, or ever driven a real race car?
Not. I mean, I've driven some fast cars, but technically any of them were race cars. So borderline. Yeah, I've attended a lot of motorsport over my time on this rock. I really like getting out and seeing cars driving around in circles, probably more than is healthy for the average person, or certainly the average person that wants to keep their hearing intact, especially as I played in bands for a long time as well. But I digress, as I have been throughout the entire proceedings. I warned you about this. Yeah. Don't pretend I didn't warn you. Racetracks, wasn't it? Yeah, no, I've been to a lot of motorsport, and I've been lucky that the sim racing job has given me a lot of opportunities to go and see some stuff, and get some behind the scenes stuff. I was very lucky to be invited to Le Mans in 2018. So some of the doing the work with the SRO, I was able to go and follow that championship around during 2019. The last year has been increasingly sort of flexible in how long it felt like it's been going on for.
Yeah.
Back on the old Voldemort problem, aren't we?
Yeah,
I have driven. I've done some track days and stuff in fast cars, and I took a I have to thank race department for it. I don't know if it was Bram or Paul that organised it. They can argue with themselves over who takes credit for it. But I got to take a Golf R around the Nordschleife a couple of years ago, and that was a lot of fun. Not sure I would do it again. That's kind of a weird thing to say. I really enjoyed it, and there was no sort of apprehension beforehand. But there was this weird thing afterwards where I was just like, I just accepted like 35,000 euros worth of risk on the car, and God knows how much risk on other people's cars and all of the other things. You'd have to be mad, really, to take on that risk. You can reinsure it, but it's crazy. It's like, I'm not in a position to spend 35 grand replacing a Golf R because I got a bit enthusiastic.
Yeah.
It's mad, isn't it? It's totally mad that anyone would do that. But when I was offered the opportunity, I literally bit Bram's hand off to go and do it. And I guarantee you, I would do it again. Even saying now that it's not a very good idea, you put me remotely close to it. Just even if I was down the road at Spa and someone said, "Oh, do you want to fancy going up to?" It would happen. I don't know why I'm pretending it wouldn't.
Yeah, I think I have to be honest. If I would get the chance, I would do the same. That's just. You don't get opportunities like that, and even if you have to sell, I don't know, part of your liver or your soul or whatever, you just give it away gladly to just get the chance. I mean,
the thing is, like, objectively, it's an amazing experience. I mean, like, it's one of those bucket list kind of things, but I don't know, the kind of risk reward compared to, say, going and doing a track day at the Nürburgring GP circuit, for example, next door. I'm sure you can spend a few €100 and get to drive a Ferrari or Lamborghini or a Porsche or whatever around there for an hour or two. And, if you crash it, then there's just the overhead. There's, whatever the insurance stipulation is. No one's asking you to replace the entire car.
Yeah.
People don't die doing that kind of thing. There aren't serious accidents. But you go over, you go just down the road a few hundred yards to the Nordschleife, and the rules are very different. And it's filled with crazy, crazy people as well.
There are enough crazy video shortcuts you can search on YouTube. It's insane. It's just insane. And well, honestly, on my bucket list, actually, when it is all over, is to get to the Nordschleife and into a race taxi and at least do 1 or 2 laps, even if it costs a bit much. But honestly, when you think about it, you get into a basically tuned car, like even if it's an AMG, the Green Beast, as you love to call it, and you have the the professional race driver. Actually, you have the fuel, you have the crew who cares for the car. It actually sounds really reasonable to pay, like, I don't know what, 300-400 euro for 1 lap. And that's definitely on my list to experience that.
I found it much harder being a passenger than a driver. It terrified me being a passenger around I say terrified, it was pushing it a bit far, but it was uncomfortable, and you were shaking around, and there were a few points where I found myself going for the brake pedal, the invisible one on the floor that's not there on the passenger side. Whereas when I was driving, it was just like, cool, I'm driving around this place, it's fine. And I'm taking the racing line, and I know this place. I felt totally in control, and it felt smooth and almost like sort of serene and normal. But swap seats to the other side, and Christ, all the controls taken away. You've got nothing to brace yourself on. You're flung around. It's mad. It's totally different.
And I think you have the feeling because you kind of have a sense for limits. And then suddenly there is a driver next to you who actually seems to be pushing way over these limits.
Yeah,
and that's what makes you feel
there's definitely a difference in ability between the two, and that wasn't lost on me.
That's cool. So so that's like on my bucket list, and I really would love to do that. I would actually, honestly, I don't think I would be ready to take a car across the whole Nürburgring Nordschleife on my own, because actually remembering what's coming up is my first issue. And then being scared of like doing something stupid is the next issue. So I think I would just rather prefer the passenger role in the beginning. But So let me just quickly check up if anything's coming up on the chat except the usual Dr. Boonatix. I guess I'm never going to get rid out of this one. So thank you, Chris.
Do you consider an online marketplace for services and pharmaceuticals, that kind of thing?
Come to Dr. Boonatix. I'll help you. Currently, lots of nice comments, so that's cool. People are enjoying it. That's amazing to see. And 369 Dark Knight Boonatix, how large would you like your channel to grow, and are you ready for it to get as big as some of the other channels out there? I actually have no goal, because I think that's the most important thing. You should not have a goal. It's like I said, sitting with the Ferrari car catalog and doing stock market. That's just not why I'm doing this. I'm on the other hand, I'm ready for anything. I think, Chris, you're kind of living the dream. Maybe you don't think of it as like that, but I think being your own boss, being your own doing your own thing, living, your passion every day, creating stuff that's enjoyed by thousands and thousands of people around the world. I think that's really something that I would love to do as well. But to answer the question shortly, it's that's not why I got on YouTube, and that's actually not a goal for me. The goal for me is to help people get into sim racing, to establish a friendly and just amazing community where everyone can have a good time, create great content, get in touch with other great people who share the passion, like Chris, for example, and just, keep, entertain people and just get their minds off all the other stuff that is going on outside there. So that was just, a short, long answer to that question from my side. Jesus, we are drifting off every time.
No, I'll answer the question because a nice jumping off point. Yeah, it's very nice to be able to have the be your own boss thing, with the good and the bad that comes from that. I've largely been self-employed one way or another for a lot of the last 10 years. So at this stage, I'm probably not employable in any conventional sense of the word. So I do have a bit of a feel for making a go of it myself. And I've gotten very used to the kind of ebbs and flows, the ups and downs that come with doing that kind of thing. When you're reliant on your own income, as I'm sure there are plenty of people in the chat that are themselves, you'll know that it's sort of feast and famine a lot of the time, without trying to mix too many very sort of trite metaphors. It can be a bit of a roller coaster. So you get better at feasting off of the high points and trying to pretend the lows don't happen. And, it's good fun. But I have a goal at the moment. I'd like to grow the channel to 100,000 subscribers. Not a million miles away now. It's something that'll happen in the next 6 months without necessarily having to change anything to do that, which is lovely. But I really want validation from YouTube. I want the shiny silver thing more than I've wanted anything else in my life, and I don't know why. That's something that's come about recently, and I think it's just one of those things where I've kind of settled into what I'm doing. I feel comfortable in the way I'm approaching things, and there's no one coming after me for late rent checks and things like that. So it would just be nice to have a material possession that's shiny, that says you've done good.
That's brilliant. That's nice. And a fitting question to that actually is, what's your wife thinking about what you're doing?
Oh, who knows? Who knows? There's a skill that I picked up a while ago, which was don't ask questions that you don't want to know the answer to. And that's very much one of the. No, I kid. My wife is extremely supportive. I basically left a company we formed together to do this. So I absolutely couldn't do any of this without her support. And obviously we got a young child together at the moment as well, which makes everything super easy. I don't know why anyone says childing is parenting. That's the one, isn't it? The one where you're the grown up and they're not running the show. Parenting, that's easy. Yeah, piece of cake. Doesn't take all of your soul, all of your time, all of your energy. So yeah, no, it's absolutely a team effort, and my wife is a constant sounding board for ideas, and helps me on shoots occasionally. She helped me build the studio, and yeah, she's not only supportive, but she's sort of a part of this and never gets any recognition whatsoever.
Oh, so
I feel quite bad now. You keep bringing me down with these questions. Let's some positive. Like, when's the Nordschleifer coming to ACC?
Now you have to take a drink. I'm sorry, Chris. It's not me asking the questions. The chat's coming up with the questions. I'm just
no, it's okay. I keep meandering towards these sort of profound truths about myself and my own situation that I'm only realizing by rabbiting out loud. It's another thing that happens when you become a new parent, is that you get less time to think. So I haven't done any thinking during the last year. That's so a lot of this is coming out now on the stream to you guys in this sort of weird group therapy session we've got going on.
It's all good. Dr. Boonatix is here to help. All right. I'm having a great time, guys.
You as Fraser Crane now, because I can't see you on the screen. I'm just picturing you as like Kelsey Grammer with like a cardigan and, you know, the weird receding, like bald on top but really long hair down the back thing that he had going on that no one really commented on for some reason.
Fortunately, I'm looking totally different, so you'll be surprised once you rewatch the stream. Yeah, so just looking at my other topics that I had when we don't talk about it, where do you think sim racing would actually be without it? Or have you, I mean, you're doing this longer than me. Were there ever a peak in popularity?
Question. You can't talk about the elephant in the room, but if the elephant wasn't there, what would the elephant be like? That's
yeah. That's it. I'm just like, you've been doing this longer. So was there ever like any peak like that you could remember sim racing increasing in popularity, or
nothing that's had that kind of just sort of big influx of new people in one go, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
What has been happening though, I think, is kind of, we've been on a track headed towards a destination for a while with sim racing, and what the event has done is just sort of sped up the train. So things like esports and commercial funding coming into sim racing through game studios and esports and everything else is all stuff that was kind of on the horizon. But it's just happened very quickly now. I can't tell you the number of conversations I've had over the last 12 months, pretty much, with people trying to get involved with sim racing commercially in some respect. Some of those are smaller businesses, and some of those are absolutely massive names that are looking at coming in from a sponsorship side or to just buy someone out. And you know, there's part of what I've done is offer some sort of consulting infrequently, because it's weird that people come to a YouTuber to get business insight on the sim racing scene. But I mean, who else? I guess who else do you go to? We don't really have press journalism. You've got websites, but you know, realistically, they're also doing the same kind of thing where they're making their own content based on their own opinions. But yeah, I find it very strange. Some of the conversations I've been in with people have just left me totally baffled as to where they came from, where they found out about sim racing, and why the hell they're talking to me about it. But there's a lot of money washing around now that just hasn't been there before, and that has some good and it has some bad. We haven't seen too much of the bad yet, and hopefully we never do. But you know what sponsorship and all of that kind of thing can do to sports. That can obviously easily translate into esports, but I think the topic, the other elephant in the room, which is a crowded room full of various zoological oddities at this stage, is Electronic Arts and Codemasters. Obviously, that's a deal that's been public knowledge for a little while, but finally announced as confirmed today. That is very much a wait and see situation. I understand why there are so many people that are very, very negative about EA, and I think a lot of that is warranted. But you can't just copy and paste a situation from one EA deal to another and assume it's all going to work out like that. So we shall see. This is a good litmus test for what happens when a sort of a racing developer gets bought out by someone larger. And yeah, we'll see. If nothing else, we will see how the clout and buying power of Electronic Arts can take this even further into the mainstream, for better or for worse.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think everywhere where you get more money into play and more, let's say, power, I just hate to use the word, but whenever it's like about money and power, it brings out the worst of, out of some people. So far, yeah, as you said, we just saw a lot of positive vibes and a lot of positive trends, actually, and I'm just hoping let's hope it just stays that way. I mean, the indicators are there, the trends are there, and I mean, one of the announcement I think that has just blown everybody's mind was the GT World Challenge and Fanatec just saying, yep, we are working together and sim races will influence the championship. I mean, I can't even comprehend the amount of waves and ripples that has sent through not only the sim racing but the official motorsport and racing community. I mean, imagine Formula One championships being influenced by gamers at home.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. SRO have always been quite forward. They've been quite. I need to be careful with my wording here because I've worked with them in the past, and I'm continuing to work with some of the partners involved or multiple partners involved in this now I think about it. So I need to be a little bit careful. But SRO has always been very receptive to what sim racing can bring to the table and how it can dovetail with what they're doing. They have a really astute business model. That's why SRO is a huge success, is not necessarily because it provides the most exciting racing series in the world with the most exciting cars and or whatever. What they have is a really sustainable, clever business model that they've managed to sort of franchise out and work around everywhere else. They have a very good team of people at the top that know what they're doing and can sense a good business opportunity. So when I see them doubling down on sim racing, I can only conclude that they see sim racing as as not only a great partner for what they're doing, but as an important thing that they want to be a big part of in the future. And so, yeah, while the Fanatec announcement was pretty surprising, especially coming this quickly.
Yeah.
When I sat down and thought about it, so well, no, I had been party to conversations where similar things had been pitched in the past. That sounds way more grandiose than it is. I'm going to walk that straight back. Those sort of discussions have been happening widely, and as I said, they're a very receptive organizations. So I'm not totally surprised about it. I am also not surprised about some of the reaction from the motorsport world, which is all sorts of should we call it mixed?
Yeah, which was absolutely expected. I mean, me coming from like more the gaming background, I think it's just an incredible cool idea, and you never know what the future brings. But I think if I just remember back the first days when like esports was turning up and people were like looking at you like, what, you're playing for money, like video games for money? Are you crazy? And I'm like, look, I mean, it's not crazier than soccer where 22 people run behind a leather ball. I mean, come on. So it's always interesting that it seems like gaming is, I think it improved especially the last year, but let's say in the last 5 or 6 years, I think the image kind of improved, and people have been, accepting more like that gaming is becoming mainstream. You see more and more people not only playing, PlayStations, but building gaming PCs. And what this year has shown us is there's never enough stock of GPUs. So everyone is struggling because the demand is there. People are going into building a PCs, like the famous video of Henry Cavill, Superman, putting together his own custom PC. I mean, that just went around the world, and it's like finally gaming, having a PC at home is becoming mainstream, and that's just, I think, one of the very, very positive and amazing trends it has had. I love that, by the way.
For sure, yeah. I mean, a couple of things. Yeah, I think also Bitcoin mining became quite mainstream, which is why we're struggling with GPU. Well, it's Ethereum mining they're doing, aren't they, at the moment? That's the big problem. But it'd be nice to be able to get a GPU at some point. Yeah, the Henry Cavill thing's a great example. Obviously, he's a huge sort of flag waver for the kind of slightly nerdy gamer type community anyway. So it's wonderful when you see things like that. It adds a legitimacy because he's involved in one of the biggest movie franchises of the time.
Yeah.
Now one of the sort of big breakout sort of Netflix shows of probably last year, I forget. It's filmed. They're filming the next season of it about 2 miles up the road from where I am at the moment. I'm hoping I can bundle him into the back of the van when no one's looking. We can do we can get him to do some laps.
Yeah, Henry Cavill, you need to do sim racing right now, or there won't be a new Superman movie.
Sounds good to me. No, it's a good. I'm gonna take control of this. I'm gonna ask a question which I saw on your list, which is about motorsport movies.
Yeah.
I thought I'd make another link to the local area and that video I made about building a racetrack at Blackbush Airport. Rush, the movie was filmed, or at least all the pit paddock and sort of race start scenes were all filmed on Blackbush Airfield. They did some of the racing scenes at various other sort of small racetracks in the UK, but a lot of the characters hanging out in the paddock talking to each other, causing a bit of a scene, was filmed at that location. And I was living in the area at the time. It was nice to be able to go up and sneak out, and they were quite accommodating at allowing people onto the set and see things. So it's a nice little connection to that place. Was especially seeing all those beautiful replica 70s Formula One cars, and I think some in those scenes were real, others were replicas that they made. I think any of the driving you saw for race starts and stuff was definitely replicas, or definitely sounded like it to me. But
yeah, they did an incredible job. I mean, I'm always just baffled that the tools and the technology and the skill that the magicians in Hollywood have bringing stuff like that to life. I'm always wondering when I see a show, for example. I mean, you have so much going on Netflix. When they do like shows that play in like the 70s or 80s, and you see the amount of old cars and all that stuff.
I mean, all I look for in period.
Yeah. I mean, I think my girlfriend gets annoyed at some point when we are watching like a show like that. I'm like, hey, there's a 69 Mustang, and look, there's a Camaro SS in the background. Look, like pointing out the cool cars.
Yeah, I really enjoy. I'm really sad that Mindhunter got cancelled. I was really enjoying because it was over quite a period of time. The 2 seasons they did, seeing the cars sort of develop as time went on. Fargo,
that was an amazing show as well. Amazing show.
The only I don't watch TV or movies for the plot or the story. It's just for cars.
For the cars. There was even a movie for Need for Speed, which was just horrible, but the cars in it were pretty cool. I just watched it for the cars. I didn't even. There's a plot in the movie. Okay, nice. I don't care.
There was all of those video game movies. There's an interesting tie-in with some of the stuff we've been talking about. Was it UA Bowl? think that's how you pronounce it. He's a German director, widely renowned for making some of the worst films ever.
Yes.
Loads of video game movies. He did a Postal movie and a bunch of others that I forget. It's really interesting that it was only someone like him that could make films like that at the time, and now we're seeing a lot of video game movies sort of coming to life. So the question is, when does the Gran Turismo movie come out?
Yeah, but unfortunately, I mean, honestly, most of the video game movies are just not very good. I don't know what it is.
Oh, that was his thing. He was making intensely awful movies. That was his shtick. But it looks like some of the stuff on the horizon might actually be all right. So yeah. Gran Turismo movie, when?
Yeah, let's hope for one. That would be awesome. We generally need more like more. Let's say, I mean, Rush was a very enjoyable movie, and I especially liked it because I love, as a kid, I just watched movies in German synchronization here in Austria, and once I got my first DVD player like 20 years ago, I started to watch movies in the original version, and since then ever, I've just been watching movies in their original version because it's so much more enjoyable, and you can only imagine my reaction when the first time I heard Arnold Schwarzenegger in his original English. And since then, I just made it a thing, to like put the cookie down and so on. So like, I cannot watch him in German anymore. And it's like in Rush, they did it so brilliantly with the actor who was like the scene when he was first test driving the Ferrari, and he's like, "This guy's total shit, it's not even turning in. What are you doing there?" And it was like, it was brilliant.
Yeah, no, Daniel Rowe did an amazing job with that. I think he honestly, I was going to start turning this into a movie review podcast, but let's not. He did an amazing job. I enjoyed Rush. It was filmed near me. And should we talk about sim racing?
Shall we talk about sim racing again? Oh, but let's finish.
What's the topic?
If you want to finish the movie series topic, there's a new show on Netflix called The Crew with Kevin James, which revolves around the NASCAR team, which is like, if you know King of Queens, Kevin James.
Yeah, Paul Blart.
Yeah. But I'm honestly surprised. It's actually very well done. It's pretty funny and relatable, and I like the actors. So if anyone's out there thinking like, I don't know, should I watch it? It's just 10 episodes, so I think you should give it a try. It's really cool.
I will do. I mean, Kevin James isn't the sort of person that I think, you know what, cancel my plans.
Exactly.
We're going to clear out the DVR. We are going to get all 10 episodes of this, and we're going to binge that this weekend. But
no, it's same here, but that's why I was positively surprised.
And fine now, man. This is
they cut in real NASCAR scenes, and well, at least I think it's a pretty realistic replica. You see at least a huge Chevy NASCAR all the time in the background. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. Ford versus Ferrari, also a really cool movie, actually. Did you see that one?
Yeah. You can't beat those stories. I mean, that's a good link back to the sim racing thing, actually, which is that
nice.
A big part of what I try to do more so now than ever before in videos is to really try and hone the story, which is, I guess, why I've had such trouble with the SimuCube review video, is because the story is, here's a thing that I got sent and it's really good, and I'd like to tell you why it's good, and that's not a very interesting story. Whereas, making a racetrack in my backyard, which has got all of this history and everything else, that's a much better story. It's much more interesting to tell, and it's compelling. And motorsport history is full of really interesting, compelling stories. And that's why you have, I think you said GP Laps was in the chat earlier. If you're still watching, a lot of the content on his channel is related on a similar note to telling some of those great motorsport stories. And you've got people like Aidan Millward as well, and that are also sharing the sim racing space, I should say. Obviously, outside of that, you have a lot more. But motorsport is just full of amazing stories waiting to be told. I would love to see a biopic of about 70% of all of the drivers who've ever sat in a Le Mans car or a Formula 1 car, to be honest with you, or an Indy car, or whatever. There's some great stories out there.
Absolutely. I've been actually, since you managed Le Mans now, I've been following the Porsche channel on YouTube, has been doing like a short documentaries about their Proton racing team, which is racing in the European Le Mans series with Michael Fassbender, with the actor. And they're providing some tremendous, insightful,
Patrick Dempsey, isn't it? So there's also actor.
Yeah. And as well as an Austrian guys racing in the team. I think Richard Lietz is his name, and he's pretty famous Austrian race car driver as well. And it's incredible because I think that's also why I enjoyed the Netflix documentary. There was somebody just mentioning Drive to Survive, which season 3 is coming out soon, and this makes it all so much more relatable, so much more human, and that's actually the fascinating thing that you never really see when you watch a 24-hour Le Mans race. Yes, you see the race cars, but you rarely see all the efforts, all the emotions, all the struggle in the background.
Audi did a pair of documentaries during their 10-year or whatever it was, complete domination of Le Mans. And I'm sure people in chat will bring up what it's called. I'm completely blanking on the name of it now, but where they followed the Audi team, sort of Drive to Survive style, but this is obviously 15 years beforehand, for the entire cycle of the 24 hours, the prep as well. Those were two extraordinary documentaries. They're both available on YouTube, I think, still. So hopefully someone brings up the name of that in chat, because my brain is...
If anyone has a link, just feel free to post it, because I would be sure as hell interested in seeing those. So
they're both great, as is Gentleman Driver on Netflix as well, which I'm sure...
We just got it posted in chat. Truth in 24.
Truth in 24, that's the one. I knew it had something to do with 24, but I mean, that doesn't really narrow it down, does it? Thank you very much. That was.
That's the SimRacing community in action right there. Everybody knows something. That's just insane. And
it's nice being able to crowdsource answers. Normally I'd have to get my phone out and Google it.
It's like the hive mind, you know. And actually, I have one person who has been following my channel and my stream for a very long time is Peter. He's from Ireland, and he's a professor at a university, and they have been doing some really cool stuff with their students, which is sim racing. And they actually used my custom livery tutorial as like an inspiration to get into this project and have people start sim racing and develop, their custom liveries and race teams and do video cutting about that. And Peter was having me as a guest in one of the online lectures that they are doing, which was amazing. And he's actually now asking if you and me both would be interested in doing something like that in the near future.
Oh, I would. I relish any opportunity to have someone ask me to talk. So, no, I would love to. Peter, if you find me on Twitter, is probably the best way to reach out, or any of the videos on YouTube. I've got email address in there.
Yeah.
Failing that, Boone has Dr. Boonatix has all my contact information.
Yes, indeed. I can confirm that via email is actually the best way to reach Chris, or just annoy him on Twitter. So Peter just is excellent. So I'm really looking forward to that, because for me, like also like giving something to the community or helping other people get into this and share experiences is so much fun and such a great thing that I think it would be a tremendous opportunity for them to get to know Chris. And you've been longer in this sim racing scene than me, so you have a bunch of more stories to tell.
Yeah, most of them can be told. Oh, there's university age. It's fine. Yeah,
I think they should be fine. Yeah. They should be fine. So cool. I'm really looking forward to that. Sim Racing 101 with Dr. Boonatix. I think we just got the idea for a new series. I should probably rename my Learn from My Mistakes to Sim Racing 101 with Dr. Boonatix. That's Pete. Thank you so much. A legend is born. Oh, great. I'll tell you, Chris, I'll never get rid of that.
I do hope not.
Awesome. So, sim racing and racing, so virtual motorsport, real motorsport. I think I've got an interesting like kind of question where I would like to know your opinion is McLaren just I think yesterday or today announced their new McLaren Artura, which is a hybrid sports car. And other brands are jumping into the boat. Some go full electric, some go hybrid. What do you think? Would you see a future for that in GT racing, GT3, GT4 cars with hybrid engines?
This is a big question. First of
Yes.
all, I am, as I mentioned, at every possible opportunity, a huge McLaren fan. They are based a few miles up the road from me
Brilliant
here
cars.
in the southeast of England. So there's some local loyalty, certainly. It's interesting that it's sort of taken them a bit of a while to jump into the hybrid boat. And it feels like hybrid is kind of a thing that's been done. They did it with the P1 as well, didn't they? So it's not their first venture into hybrid, but
Yeah.
we're it feels like hybrid's kind of a bit of a halfway house in the sense that you kind of end up having to have both technologies on board and not in the sound way that we've been doing it for a long time with things like trains where you use a diesel generator to generate electricity and then electric motors to power the wheels or whatever. So I don't see too much of a push towards hybrid. I know SRO are pushing towards a completely green series as well. I can't remember the exact technology base behind it, but I don't think it's hybrid. Jaguar announced this week, I think, it may have been last week now, that they were going all electric from 2025. We're going to see very soon over the next couple of years exactly where all of the brands lie and where they're going to try and compete with each other. Jaguar are obviously sensing that they're losing out on the to Tesla massively, and it's not surprising if you're certainly in this part of the world, the types of people buying Tesla Model S's are the sort of people that would have bought Jaguars 10 or 15 years ago. So
Yeah.
they are way behind the curve on trying to stem that hemorrhaging of customers. I don't see any issue with more forms of electric racing coming online, and we're going to see a lot of it because motorsport is dominated by what manufacturers want to do.
Yeah.
That's why we keep seeing weird pushes from a few of them to bring hydrogen into motorsport. Toyota actually have a hydrogen car available on the market, don't they? I think they only sell about 12 models a year because the network to resupply it is problematic.
I think Toyota, and Toyota is actually, I think, the market leader in this technology. I saw like there's one huge German YouTuber called JP Performance. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He was visiting the Toyota factory, I think, or was it was it Hyundai? I don't know, but they are so deep into the hydrogen stuff that they're actually working on hydrogen generators for houses, so that you can just order a refuel and it just powers your house for the next couple of months or something like that. So that's actually a huge topic which is completely unfortunately forgotten in Europe. And I read, was it last year, that actually Daimler is pioneering for trucks for like transportation, because trucks with a huge tanks, hydrogen, I mean, you can go 10 times further. So this is, I think,
it makes a lot of sense for the issue you've got with hydrogen for normal cars is the same problem you've got for petroleum and electricity, which is that you need an extensive grid. A lot of hydrogen at the moment is produced via natural gas, which has ecological problems with it as well. So you're not necessarily cutting down on the CO2 emissions in the same way as you would be with a completely renewable. And also the other form is electrolysis, which uses a huge amount of energy to do. So there are some problems to be solved there, but it doesn't stop the automotive manufacturers coming along every now and then and saying, hey, we want to enter a hydrogen car in your thing. Because there's the Project 24 thing, the H24 thing that keeps turning up at Le Mans, but the interesting that finally do a race, I think.
Yeah, I was just because I just saw the new McLaren, I was just thinking it's actually interesting that nobody from like GT World or anything, that there's like not even the hint of like, let's say, a GT H series or something, that they're basically like, do their own GT series just with hybrid cars?
They did a press launch last year at some point for a green series, and I honestly,
Okay, I must have missed
again,
it.
baby, no brain anymore. I can't remember the technology behind it. I think it was for several types of green tech.
Okay, interesting. Because I'm just I was until now more or less passionate MotoGP follower, because I drive my own motorcycle, and even they are now incorporating the Moto E class, which is like on some of the tracks they are racing electric bikes, which is just, if you are a petrol head, it's just mind-boggling to see like cars with barely any sound going around the track, which is like so yeah, to me it was like I'm wondering if any of the big like motorsport leagues in car racing will ever take that step. But yeah, we're
definitely, without question, and you're going to see more and more pop up over. There's the Extreme E, which is launching about now, isn't it? I saw a tweet that they were loading the vehicles onto the ship yesterday, so that must be kicking off soon.
nice.
You're going to see more and more electric only motorsport. It's Rallycross, the World Rallycross, that was going all electric. I've not seen what's happened there. Might have already done it for all I know. Again, last year of my life has been mostly baby. So please feel free to correct me in chat if I'm talking complete rubbish. But yeah, I don't. It's not a case of even when; it's a case of how long for these, I think. F1's the biggie. If you want to ask the tough question, is when does Formula One go all electric? And no one knows the answer to that.
I don't see that happening in the near future. Actually, if you look at there is the Formula E already, and that's, I think, barely getting any traction, right? Or like any attention. They try to force it, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's a problem, and problem's a bad word for this actually, but there's a thing about motorsports where there are really only, outside of the US, so if we discount NASCAR, which is massive, but if we look at sort of European and Asian motorsport, which is sort of fairly homogenous, there really is only one or two series that get any traction at all on anything. You've only got Formula One that is consistently popular. Even WEC, which you might say is the next biggest, doesn't get massive viewership on some of its races. Endurance racing just doesn't have that kind of primetime TV appeal. I mean, who wants to? Which sort of average casual motorsport fan is going to be like, you know what? I'm going to spend 12 hours sitting here and watch Sebring. No, you've got to be really committed to do that.
Yeah.
And there are all sorts of formatting issues. So, I've seen numbers for Formula E that actually look fairly positive when compared to things that aren't Formula One. You take Formula One out of that, which has massive legacy going on. So, it's been going on since, well, its lineage is back to the beginning of the motor car. But as we know it, it's been going on since the 50s. It's been televised regularly since maybe the 1970s in Europe, and then really professionally from the 1980s. So it's got decades and decades and decades to have built up a mythos and a brand image around it. So any motorsport that starts out is going to face issues regardless of what the technology is around it. I mean, look at A1GP, which had some fantastic racing, but that disappeared after a few years because it never really caught on. Most of the best racing doesn't happen in Formula One. So it's not the quality of Formula E's racing that's causing it to have lower viewership than Formula One. If anything, the kind of frenetic, fast-paced, crazy racing's probably one of the things it's got going for it. They're shorter races as well. It pretty well formatted for television.
Yeah.
Have the sound that we all love, and the cars are not quick enough really at the moment, but they've got a kind of sustainable growing model there where they're not trying to reinvent the wheel, to use a really trite and clumsy metaphor. They're taking things slowly, and I think COVID hasn't. Oh, I've done it. I said it. bugger. Voldemort hasn't been great for them.
Yeah. Okay. Let's
That was a long answer, wasn't it?
a very long answer, but thank you so much for that. Let's take a U-turn back to sim racing because I just discovered
know something about.
I just discovered a question in chat which was like let's narrow it down. It's like if you could add one thing to a sim racing game, like for example Assetto Corsa Competizione, what would it be?
Okay, well, if we're going to take Assetto Corsa Competizione, obviously I would add the Nordschleifer, because then people would stop asking about adding the Nordschleifer. The normal answer I give for this is I would just ask for Group C content everywhere. But actually, to give a sensible answer, I would like to see sim racing companies take a slightly bigger risk on the types of content they produce. What made Assetto Corsa brilliant and its enduring legacy, I think, the original this is the variety of content. Sure, that means there are compromises to be made in the type of handling engine and maybe the types of game mode and stuff that they've addressed with ACC, where they've been able to really tighten it down. And it feels, if you want a GT3 driving experience, I don't think anything comes close in terms of the actual, the whole part and parcel, not just the physics. I mean, the whole experience. And that's what you get with Codemasters with the Formula One games. But no, I would like to see a broader approach to content, because that's what makes games like Automobilista so appealing, is turning up and driving it and being like, I have no idea what that car looks like, but I'm pretty sure it's a 1970s something from General Motors, or at least a knockoff of it, maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows? Let's go and race in that series. And it turns out it's amazing. And it produces all sorts of things like that. And maybe that's something that Sector 3 do quite well with Race Room, is they take some of the slightly less well-known content, but again, a lot of that is I guess the sort of the touring car niche, which is fine if you're really into touring cars, and I am, but there's only so many touring car series that you want to see. I'd still much rather someone comes up with a race series that I've never heard of, or a support series for the 1972 World Sports Car Championship that you'd never heard of. And that's led me nicely back to, with the World Sports Car Championship link, is why don't more games have like a decent Group C representation? I want to see stuff that isn't a Porsche 962, a Mazda 87, and the Sauber. They turn up in every game. Let's get a decent, please, let's get a decent Group C thing going somewhere, please.
Okay, I think we got the question pretty much covered for me. For what we would,
I tried to keep brevity is wit, as I think. Brevity is the soul of wit. That's what Shakespeare said, wasn't it? He added extra words because he wasn't that fussed about brevity.
I think for me, if we're talking about ACC, it would be actually like proper integration of custom liveries. It's just infuriating.
Well, you know why they won't.
I absolutely know why not. Yeah. They are really. I think that's one of the things that's making it a bit tough for Kunos with ACC. As I see people writing in chat, why can't we get like a game that has Super GT? I mean, these are awesome cars, crazy cars.
It would be amazing, but it's got the same. It's got the same issue that making a game about the Blancpain GT series has.
Licensing.
Which is you've got to get the license for it, which is I actually don't think would be that difficult. But you have to find an audience for it, and you look at the viewership numbers for Super GT in Europe and outside of Japan, and it's absolutely terrible, which is criminal, really, because it produces amazing racing. The grids are just mind-blowing. Just some of the stuff that turns up in Super GT is just amazing. I mean, there's a Prius GT3. I mean, of all the things in the world, there's a Prius GT car.
Yeah.
And if they made an official Super GT game, the first thing I would drive would be the Prius.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to know how that sounds like in the game when I'm sitting in the car. but again, yeah, it's not only licensing, as you said, viewership. I think it's just an issue again. Coming back to that, is that not many European networks or television stations are picking that up.
Yeah, you have to pay a fortune for the license for a game like that, which means you have to sell a lot. But the reality is, sim racing developers are quite small. Most of them. If we just take iRacing off the top, who have a completely different business model and can probably afford to employ quite a lot of people, most sim racing developers, and I mean the hardcore sims now, rather than Cody's as well and people like that, are under 50 people working for them. And when you get down to some of the even more niche, we're getting sort of around the 20 or even less people working for them. These aren't massive companies. If they have to go and pay $1 million to go and get the Super GT license because they're expecting TV kind of money. And incidentally, I don't think that's a necessarily massively off base guess at whatever that would cost. So they've got to sell a lot of video games to justify that. And is the audience there? Don't ask me.
Yeah. Tough question. I think that's what when I always think about, I mean, Kuno Simulazione has done a brilliant job with AC, and now with ACC, it's just they are so restricted because of the license, which is completely understandable. You have to focus on something when you're not a huge company and don't have like maybe a huge publisher like EA or something in your bag. But I think they just created an amazing experience, which is it's so deep, it's so realistic, and it's on the other hand, it's somehow a shame that all of this is kind of just used for one racing series. I mean, they have their GT4s, they have the GT3s, and I think their approach is actually a really good one with having the main game and churning out a DLC every few months to keep the inflow of some revenue going. But it's just they have such a great game, such a realistic physics engine, that the graphics are amazing. It's just, it would be so cool if they could just expand it to different types of racing leagues, like either Super GT, European Le Mans, get some prototype cars in, whatever. It's just yeah,
it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? The license is the thing that gave the game the purpose and the reason to be in the first place, but it's also the reason that it couldn't expand out to involve rival series. So you can't have it both ways, unfortunately.
Yes, unfortunately. And I'm really looking forward into the future, because I'm pretty sure you read about the interview from I forgot his name, one of the co-founders of Kuno Simulazione, who was talking about like the future plans and what they're doing, and they're actually working on their next simulation. I
understand they have been for some time. I don't know which interview you're referring to, but the reality is that if they start, was it 2018 version 1.0 came out of Assetto Corsa, or after
something like that, yeah.
On early access for sort of 9 months or so before that. So if they were just getting around to starting the next thing in 2021, then it would be a very long lead time to the next thing. So I think there's been some stuff in the works. Whether that's going to be Assetto Corsa 2, which is what 90% of the comments I ever see about what Kunos are going to be doing next, or whether that's going to be a licensed game. My gut feeling is that it would probably more likely be a licensed game.
I think as well, yeah.
I think that's more... It makes more sense to me commercially to do that, not because anyone's said anything to me or that I've got any insider information. I want to be very clear about that. It's me just licking my finger and putting it up in the wind and really just guessing. But I think I have pitched to, I'm sure it was Marco that would have been giving this interview. Every time I speak to him, I tell him to go and make a Group C game. So I'm pretty confident that the official game of the 1986 World Sports Car Championship will be coming from Kuno Simulazione in the next 12 months.
I think you will be the first one who gets the news from Kudos.
Maybe. Maybe.
We got Peter, our professor, is asking what is in Chris's Simric setup at the moment.
So I don't know if you can see.
We can see.
I can move. At the moment, I'm running a SimuCube 2 Pro, which I've had on the rig for a couple of weeks now. Finally got around to testing it. I was waiting on a button box. So I've got an Asher Racing button box on there at the moment, and the Huizenveld Sprints, which are also fairly new to using. So I am learning to steer and brake again, which is exciting.
I absolutely know what you mean when I switched from my G29 to the CSL Elite wheelbase and the ClubSport pedals. I was like, no, I struggled for 6 months to go faster, and now I have to start all over again.
It comes fairly quickly, but I mean, just the reality is that muscle memory builds up over time, and I've been largely using ClubSport V3s, the Fanatec pedals for a long time, for 3 or 4 years, with other sets sort of interspersed in for various videos, for reviews, and for comparing things and what have you. So over the last couple of months, I went over to a set of OBP Motorsport, who are a real world manufacturer, a set of hydraulic pedals that they use. That took me a while to break the muscle memory trap, and then just when I got used to them, I've got the Huizenvelds on there. So yeah, I can't brake anymore.
So what would you say made the biggest, or what has the biggest impact then? Is it steering, wheelbase, or pedals?
It doesn't make you any quicker. Once you get to a load cell brake pedal, that's the only thing that really seems to make any difference in terms of it doesn't help. I don't think it helps peak lap time, but it definitely helps with consistency. You get much better feel finding the threshold repeatedly, and things like trail braking, and it's much more pronounced in not necessarily older cars, but cars that are trickier to brake in, and particularly without things like ABS. But yeah, steering. I've done several videos where I compare like high end to low end equipment, or high end to no force feedback and things like that. And in terms of peak lap time, I can always get within a tenth or so on any equipment when given a bit of time to get up to speed. So the thing I always say is that in terms of raw lap time, I just don't think equipment makes any difference. And if you look at any of the leaderboards for things like Assetto Corsa or Race Room and stuff like that, there are plenty of guys there. I use Assetto Corsa as the example because some of them actually publish the information on what gear they've been using. So you've got guys on old G27s and G25 still sitting at the top of leaderboards, and then you've got people with thousands of euros of equipment sitting on their rig who are nowhere close. So
yeah.
I will be doing some video once Voldemort's left the room and we can all get together again. I'm going to get some very fast people down. I've got set up, and we're going to just do back-to-back test a whole bunch of gear, just so people can finally stop asking the question, what makes you quicker. This would be a scientific test, except for I'm going in with a massive preconception.
That will be.
I already know the answer that I think and that I kind of want. So
that will be something I'm absolutely daring to see, to really get some pro racers or really quick race drivers and sit them in a G27 or whatever on a keyboard and a gamepad and let them do some laps. And I think
I can't remember who it was. Amir Hassini.
Amir, yes,
posted his own setup. He's still rocking a G27 and a tiny monitor, and he's competing at the front of ACC fields consistently.
I think he's one of Niels's worst nightmares, actually.
Well, Neil's put together a project to crowdfund him
Yes.
a direct drive wheel last year.
I actually donated for that because Amir is just, he definitely deserves that. So he's a great guy.
Yeah, no, I did as well.
And
at the time, I think he's got it now, hasn't he? He just needs the
parts of it, I think.
There was some difficulty getting it into his country and what have you. But yeah, the guy just makes us, makes the whole sim racing business look stupid, really, by being so quick on that gear. But I like to think that it at least sort of proves my observations correct, that the gear doesn't necessarily make the driver makes the gear. I mean, I always use Hendrix on a catalog guitar would have still sounded really great.
Yeah. And Brian in chat just basically says, so I can't blame my lap times on the Thrustmaster T80. Damn it.
Oh yeah, I mean, if it's a T80, it's definitely the problem. Yeah, you're fine. And if your wife or partner's listening, then you definitely do need to spend more money.
Absolutely, for the immersion.
Yeah.
And I think one good point is actually because I see stuff of that happening in other games where there are like people, we are still talking computer games. Neither if it's a flight simulation or racing simulation, it's a computer game. It has limitations, it has a certain programming, and coming from other genres, I know that there are people who can just get to the limit within certain limitations or physics or programming or whatever. They know how to, I don't want to say trick, but they know how to kind of, I also don't want to say abuse, but you know where I'm going. It's like they just know how to exploit it, and
they know how to exploit the games. They find ways to do it, and if you're competitive, then your job is to find those exploits. That's the reality. It's no different to McLaren with their third brake pedal in the 90s, or with the F duct or the S duct, or Mercedes with their wacky rear wings and all sorts. There is a set of rules there in the real world that they're physically trying to exploit because they're written by human beings and they're fallible, and any set of rules can be challenged from a wording perspective, especially if they're written in English, which is just a terrible language. But that's no different in the game world. And I think if you're an esports driver, it's your duty to find those exploits and when you can, use them. Using the Ferrari esports series as an example, I wouldn't necessarily call it an exploit, but one of the natures of that car that was built for that series is that even with the most pointy setup you could build possible, it still didn't rotate necessarily as well as you'd like on slow corners. So a lot of the fast guys were absolutely flying in to a corner and sort of intentionally destabilizing the car a little bit to get rotation. You had a fixed differential setting, so if you knocked a gear down at a point where you wouldn't necessarily do it for any other reason, it could induce a little bit of oversteer, which would help the car rotate at that critical moment. And once I'd worked out that's what they were doing, and I say I'd worked out, once other people that I was friends with that were looking at what they were doing told me that's what they were doing, I was able to gain another 2 or 3 tenths just straight away by being able to do that at those particular corners. And I suspect that stuff happens at every level in esports, racing esports, I should say, and esports everywhere else. Because you've got a set of rules, you might as well use them to your advantage.
You can program it as realistically as possible. You can try to simulate every aspect as realistic as possible. It's still, we can't kid ourselves. It's still just a game, and we have seen that actually, that if you put real race drivers into the seat, and David Perel is actually a really good example, because he just he spends a lot of time now for really racing in real life, a real race car. And he doesn't have the time to train as much in his sim rig. And I think it was now during winter when he had a break and he came back streaming and participated in a few sim grid races. He was just getting smashed. He had no chance to stick with the top groups. He was basically, I think, even at the back of the grid in many of the races, struggling to get on pace. And that just showed you that this is still, it's like like a sport, like a hobby, and you need to train for it, and you need to do it regularly to keep the
No,
feeling.
you do, and I've got personal experience with that with David, which I might as well relay. The first couple of races I did online with him, I out-qualified him, and ran ahead of him in the races, and
Yeah.
I was happy to be quicker than him. But when we got to the Ferrari Esports Series, and he'd put in the time and he'd been doing more sim racing stuff, he was much quicker than me, and he was on the pace of the other guys that he works with, that work with him at the sim grid, that were also participating in it. He was as quick as those guys, who are, Josh in particular and James are both esports guys that you'll see turn up at various series. So he was really on the pace with those guys, and I wasn't. So it shows that the reality is that even if you know what you're doing, and there's no doubt that David knows what he's doing,
Absolutely, yeah.
you've still got to put in the hours. You've still got to put in the work. It doesn't just come. It doesn't materialize. And I think people forget that a bit. Particularly when it comes to something like a video game, you can put almost infinite hours of practice in.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. This is one of, to go back to complaining about why it's difficult being a content creator and being asked to go up against esport guys. It's like, those guys, if they wanted to, like particularly the professionals who are paid to do it, who don't have a job, there is no reason that they couldn't do 8-10 hours a day driving. They could do 200 laps every day. They could
Absolutely.
find every possible tiny minuscule advantage within a game system. And they should be, because they're a professional and that's the job they're doing. Obviously, I can't do that, and people like David can't do that because he's got businesses to run and he's got a real world motorsport career that he has to worry about. And I imagine at some point he does things that don't involve driving cars as well, like sleep. But it's crazy the amount of dedication some of the guys get, and they just there's the whole 10,000 hours thing, that number that gets bandied around about becoming a master at whatever you're doing. If you can put in 10 hours a day, 10,000 hours comes around way quicker than it does if you're putting in, an hour every other evening with your mates.
Absolutely, yeah. And this is actually one of that was actually one of the reasons also for creating my channel, because I experienced this struggle. You kind of get into sim racing and you see the times that the guys are pulling off, and you're like, oh, yeah, so look like reasonable lap times, and then you do like 20 laps and you're like so far off the pace. And I see this now happening with the huge amount of influx we have into this amazing hobby. Many people are struggling, and many people look at the really quick sim racers like Chardier and Dalkin, all the fast, amazing guys who are out there, and they make it look so easy. You're like, yeah, you just have your steering wheel and you do a bit of fumbling with the brakes and throttle, and it's actually not. It's such a big, I don't want to call it struggle, but it's actually such a long road ahead of you to squeeze out every little tenth and increase your pace and get better. And I just saw this kind of empty space to move in and say, guys, just don't stress yourself. It's about the journey, it's about the experience, it's about the people you get to know, it's about learning about the cars, about the physics, about what you're doing, about what's going on, and just try to embrace that and find a car you like and get into a rhythm and just enjoy this journey. Don't stress yourself to be the world's best hot lapper, because you cannot catch up. It's impossible. Like you said, if somebody already has put in 10,000 hours, you're 10,000 hours behind. And if you're not an absolutely talented, genetically blissed alien creation, you will not be able to catch up to that level. And that's okay. That's my main message. That's okay.
Yeah, I think you hit in my experience at least, you start to hit a wall. There's fairly rapid progress you make, and then it sort of it levels off. And at least for me, I think a wonderful experiment that I would love to be in a position to do would be to just take a year away from making videos and just be like, okay, let's see if I can dedicate myself, pick a sim, and just be, this year I'm putting in my hours on Assetto Corsa Competizione or iRacing or whatever. Let's see how far I can take this, because I've hit a wall that I cannot get past. I've had tutoring sessions with a couple of esport guys and with some real racing drivers, and I'm, if anyone watched my, I did an hour-long video with Niels Naujoks where
I saw that.
showing his coaching style, and most of the things I was doing was right. There were just tiny little things at each corner, which meant that I was, just over a second away from him. And it's getting that repeatability to be able to do that every lap that I think takes the time and the work, and that I don't have the time and to put that in. And I'm very okay with it. I like that.
Absolutely.
I like making films. It's fun. Oh, I've called them films again. Okay.
The cinematography.
Oh,
oh no, I said it. No, and yeah, that's exactly the same experience here for me. That I'm currently experiencing this. Actually, I'm at a level that I can't push through, and it would actually require me to invest more time, get outside coaching, get help, practice more regularly. But I'm actually at a point where I'm like, I actually rather find a league or a community or servers where I can just keep that level and just enjoy it. There is no need to go. Yeah, there is no need to be top level because I don't get any money for it. And I sure as hell don't have the talent. That's for sure.
That's the thing, if you're an esports guy, I feel sorry for the esports guys, because you say you don't get any money for it, but most of those guys don't. Racing esports is pretty new thing still, and the commercialization of it's pretty rough. Some leagues have really good prize structures, others don't. There are a couple of teams that are able to afford to employ people full time, but most don't. So 95% maybe, or I don't know, I'm picking a number completely out of the air, but the vast majority of professional esports drivers aren't professionals. They've got other jobs they need to do, or they're funded in other ways. So it's weird to feel sorry for someone that is so good at a video game that they can do it at the top level.
Every boy's childhood dream is to get paid for gaming. But even then, I would not consider it a dream to sit in a chair for 10 hours inside. I think I would just go crazy at some point.
I don't know what you mean.
Sitting in a shed with purple background lights.
It's as far as sheds go, it's pretty good. I've got some ceiling height.
It's amazing.
If it had central heating, that would be good. If I didn't have to run electric heaters, that would be good.
Oh, okay. See, there's a down.
I've only got fan heaters, so I have to turn them off. So it's we're getting a little bit, getting a little bit cold. All the other units are out now, so
there's a downside to everything.
Hours, so.
Okay, so I mean, we are approaching 2 hours. Is there like time for another question, or shall we just?
Yeah. Throw them at me if there's any in chat. Then there was if I keep the answers under sort of like 2 minutes ago, that'd be a first. But I will try. I can answer things quickly.
What would you dare? Oh my god. Okay, that's a tricky one, but let's see if you can keep it short. There's this ongoing battle regarding field of view. Does it make any difference? Is there a right setting, or is it just drive with whatever you like?
I actually made a 1 minute long video explaining field of view, which I haven't published yet. It's going on a different platform. So yeah, I can keep this short. Mathematically correct field of view is absolutely the point you should start at. It does make a huge difference. The reason you change the setting is because the reality is your eyes have a fixed field of view. The game does not have a fixed field of view. So your position in relation to the screen changes your relationship with what's going on in the game world. What you ideally want is to be able to project your eyes through the same perspective into the screen. And that's what mathematically correct field of view does. It provides a picture that's not distorted. So essentially, you could reach through the screen and touch the wing mirror on the left, knowing where it would be.
Mhm.
Now, that has compromises. Some people prefer faster stuff moving past the sides of them. They want that sense of speed, so they go for a wider field of view. Personally, I think that's completely stupid, and it's one of those stupid crutches that people do because they're sort of used to it and not because it's necessarily the smart thing to do. Other people like a more focused in field of view, so they can actually see more detail of the road surface ahead. They can see further into the apex. They can see what have you, but then you lose the perspective of what's around you. So for me, I think the answer is start with a mathematically correct field of view and then just adjust it to suit if there is a real comfort problem. But you should really definitely try the mathematically correct one to start with, because you know that's what the game was designed to do. It's like wearing a really thick-rimmed pair of glasses or something. If the field of view is wrong, the sense of perspective shifts. Things aren't where you're looking. It's mad. I've jumped into other people's rigs who've gone for super wide fields of view and stuff, and it's just like, how do you do this? I can see the top of the car is distorted. You've gone so wide. It's like looking at it through a fisheye lens. It's mad how anyone can drive like that.
Absolutely, it's the same here. It's like, but how do you get the mathematical field of view? Is like ACC, does it have it in there, or do you need to calculate it?
Just Google it. It's fine. There are loads of
Okay.
web-based
Okay.
calculators. All you need is the measurement from your eyes to the screen and the size of your screen. It's a 2-minute job, and
Okay.
everyone should at least try it to start with. I think it makes a big difference. Yeah, try it.
Okay, nice. That's something I have to try out. I'm just basically going with the standard in ACC and just adjust a bit the height where I'm sitting in the car, to align my the steering wheel in the game with my rig. So
that's a good way to get the height sorted out, and it's actually a reasonable indicator whether your field of view is sort of about right as well. Is again because you've got a perspective thing. If you've got a GT-sized wheel in a GT-sized car and it sort of perfectly masks where the wheel is, then you kind of got it about right. And I've done it in the past where I've eyeballed it that way and then gone and checked on a field of view calculator, and I'm within a degree or two.
Yeah. Okay, nice. We have a guy called Gluten Free in chat.
Gluten-free sim racer. Yes, I'm aware of his work.
Ask Chris to pick 3 sim YouTubers: Shaq, Marry, Kill. I don't know what he means, but obviously you do. So,
well, first of all, this gluten-free sim racer is a well-known troublemaker around parts. He's a YouTuber himself, so obviously Shag. He was a big member of our moderating staff on Discord for a while. So Mary, and he was also the enforcer of a sort of sense of calm and perspective. So, kill all three for you, Mr. Gluten-free sim racer.
Awesome. Have you ever driven in virtual reality?
Yes, I right until I started the YouTube channel for about 1.5 years or so.
Oh, really?
I drove pretty exclusively. I was very early on the Oculus Rift party, and it was only becoming a streamer, not a streamer. God, I'm not really a streamer at all. I do it about twice a year. But I was only becoming a video creator that I kind of stepped away from using VR. And it's actually been a while. I really want to try an Odyssey, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I would like to go back to that and see what the current gen can bring to the party, because it's a wonderful experience. It just produces the kind of video content that I don't want to make.
Yeah, that's the thing. Again, if you can't really utilize virtual reality for video. I mean, I guess you can, but it's a completely different set, and I think a completely different challenge, actually.
It's a challenge, and it's both from putting the content together, capturing it sensibly at a good resolution. And then, you've also got, if you're capturing VR stuff, you kind of have to do the capturing on the PC you're using. So you need a really powerful graphics card to push the VR content. And
Which
you
you
also
can't
need a really
get.
powerful rig to capture the video at the same time. And you can't get a good video card at the moment for a lot more money anyway. So yeah, it's just I loved VR, and I would, if I shut the YouTube channel down tomorrow, I would move mountains to go and just have a VR only setup again.
Okay, for me it's actually quite the. I mean, I have to be honest. I never tried VR. But my perfect sim rig is actually the full immersion with triple screens and do a bit of like safety net and stuff to make it feel like I'm sitting in a real race car. That would be actually my dream setup.
I would have I've talked about this before, but I would have go back to triple monitors in a heartbeat if it wasn't for the YouTube channel, and I would have the full sort of. You see people have sort of they make a roof to enclose in round the rig. I wouldn't have a full front half of a car. That's that way madness lies. But I would box it in a bit more, and I would do the full immersion stuff as well.
Absolutely,
but
yeah.
It's not practical for lighting and filming and stuff like that. So, every one of my decisions is the first principle is how does this work for video making, not what would it be called to sim racing.
Okay, yeah, of course, completely understandable. And that's actually because you talked about not having so much or barely any time for racing. Is Peter, our professor, who basically wants to employ you for his students, is asking if you've ever worked with Motec or if you ever use stuff like that, or if you rather just drive and have some fun.
I use Motec with ACC fairly frequently. There's a lot of useful stuff you can learn from it, and I use VRS on iRacing for their sort of telemetry, not for the necessary setup style stuff that you can get with Motec, but for being able to compare lap times and data-driven stuff with professional drivers. So I think the data-driven side of sim racing is super useful, and more tools like that would make me a very happy boy. Yeah.
I've actually, I have to admit,
that's all I'm saying. I like graphs.
I like numbers. I have
when the
to
line
admit,
goes up, it's good. That's all you need to know.
I've yet to admit that I actually really did not spend any time in well, I tried it, but it didn't really go well. So I'm right now really looking at getting someone to help me find out what's going on there, because it's really.
Motec is a piece of software that was designed by people that had never used any other software ever, and then it got developed more, and lots of people used it, but any of the feedback around usability has been passed through a filter of like, why would we change that? We don't care about making software that's user-friendly in any way, shape, or form. And you see this in a lot of weird industry-specific software. Like if you start using 3D modeling software, by God, those people have never looked at any other software or conventions. Well, we'll just hide the save button in this weird menu halfway down the screen that you have to go into a sub menu for. That seems user-friendly and sensible. Sorry, you touched on a sore point there.
oh no, bringing back these bad memories. No, sorry, Chris. Yeah, great. I mean, chat's been a little bit quiet now. I think we asked a lot of questions. Actually, we got to fill a few.
You got through a lot of that list, didn't you? I thought you'd gone a bit safe,
Yeah. You said we will.
There's a lot to get through, and I thought there'd be some stuff from chat, and I normally go off on a bit of a diversion or two, as you may have noticed. But I think we got through a lot of what you had down.
Yeah, you have been really much constraining yourself.
That is not what I've thought. That's not been my experience. I think I've been fairly freewheeling.
Yeah,
we're honest with
ourselves. I think that's one of the reasons why I actually got you here, because that's just much more enjoyable for people if we have somebody just rambling on about being passionate. I mean,
well, yeah, I've done this kind of show on and off for a couple of years, and the vast majority of guests are amiable and fun, but you do get the occasional person who wants to just give a 10-word answer to a big open question, and you're like, well, I was hoping we'd get 10 minutes out of that. Let's ask some follow-up questions. Okay, no,
Oh my
you just don't
god,
want
yeah,
to talk
yeah.
about that. Fine, okay, we'll move on.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a question in chat previously. What was it? It's like, who would be a person you would definitely want to interview yourself?
Oh, Murray Walker. Just the man had a hugely interesting life, even before he got involved in the motorsport scene. Obviously, beloved commentator, and I'd love to be able to get Murray in a sim rig and get his take on it all, which is clearly not ever going to happen. But it's one of those. If we're going to ask the pipe dream kind of questions,
Yeah.
then that's the first one. And I've got lots of motorsport
One
heroes.
can dream.
Any of them.
I'm sorry. It's just my cat now just decided to sit right in front of the camera.
Well, now we've hit the real zenith of the show. This is the go out on a bang bit.
This is actually now my cat is now telling me, dude, you need to stop. It's gone way too far.
I've been listening to this guy talk about rubbish for 2 hours. It's time to have is your cat staging an intervention?
Yes, you know what's fun? She actually did that like a month ago when I was sim racing. She just decided to like sit because my setup is actually since I don't have my own room, my setup is actually a mixture right now of home office / sim rig, where I can swerve around the screen from left to right, my second screen, and the camera is just screwed to the desk on the far right, and one of my cats just loves to hop on the desk and get to the window, so camera is actually standing right in the way. And yeah, so that's what I have to work with. So I'm really looking forward to getting my own studio at some point.
Never work with children or animals or sim racers or
But
just anyone. Don't work with anyone. That is good life advice. We're 2 hours into the show and I've just written off the entire human race. Do we think that might be a good point to wrap things up on?
I think it's a good point to wrap things up. So
there's a nice pull quote for the end. So don't work with people.
Stay at home, work alone, just do some podcasts, and that's it.
Yeah, just remember to occasionally open a window. Once every 3 or 4 days, you'll be fine.
Sometimes, yeah. Especially if once you start to smell yourself, it's a good indicator to open up a window. All right, okay. It's really time to wrap this up. So, Chris, thank you so much for your time. It has been an amazing, enjoyable experience for me. Listening in on all your sorts of experience, and maybe, who knows, at some point in the future we can make something again, or even invite a third party and spend the afternoon talking about the thing.
Yeah. Well, 3 is definitely a party. No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for trusting me as the guest on your first foray into this, the first show of many, I hope. So it's been a pleasure to be involved, and it's always nice to have an opportunity to talk about myself for a bit. So I've enjoyed it immensely.
Absolutely. This was a pleasure. This was a brilliant first episode. For sure, there's more to come. And again, anyone who has been watching, anyone in chat, if you have a special wish for a guest you want to see, I will try and get him or her on. So I'm really looking to actually evolve this and expand this to have just an interesting format talking about sim racing, motorsports, and provide a good time, entertainment, and get everybody's minds off the Voldemort stuff we are not allowed to talk about. So again, really a huge shout out and thank you to Chris for staying on my podcast. And thank you everyone for watching. If you have not done so far, don't forget to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. And I wish every one of you a great evening. Have a good night. Stay safe. And I'll see you soon in one of my next streams. So take care, everyone. Bye bye.